We're going to be taking a deep look at 2024 today. We're going to look at all sorts of new approval polls for both the Democratic and Republican side. But before we do that, I have to start with a story that many of you I know will say, David, this can't be. This has to be a low. Even Fox News, even the right wing wouldn't do this, would they? And yes, they did. Fox News hosts are now worried that the rapidly declining gas prices that we're seeing might be bad for local mom and pop gas stations. I know, guys, I know. After months and months and months of saying the high gas prices are the end of the country, they are Joe Biden's fault. It is inflation. It's ruining everything. The high gas prices are so terrible. Now that gas prices have been declining for about a month, and of course, they don't want to give Joe Biden any credit for it, which, by the way, I don't think he deserves, but they were blaming Biden on the way up. Now they're silent. Now they're saying, these lower gas prices, they might be bad for gas stations. Listen to this. It is beyond parody.
Want him to run again, and the rest probably don't.
That
is stunning. By the way, on gas prices, I found it curious. I was at a lacrosse tournament up in Wilmington, Delaware over the weekend. In Delaware and northern Maryland, regular gas is about anywhere from $4.55 to $4.80 a gallon. So the price is beginning to creep back down.
It is. And the point was made over the weekend, I believe it was the Wall Street Journal, that gas prices are actually coming back down historically faster with the price of oil than usual. And it just goes to show you what an incredible risk reward calculation has to happen on the part of those small, independently owned, most of them, mom and pop gas stations. It's a struggle for all of them.
Yep.
Yeah, still a long way from $3.55 a gallon, but maybe some movement in that direction. Hey, they can't find peace and privacy.
Yeah, no, guys, listen, I mean, we really have to now think about these mom and pop gas stations. All of a sudden, prices are coming down. This could really be a bad thing for them. So we'll ask the question of whether that's even true. Just as a reminder, gas prices indeed coming down. They peaked right around really about a month ago, right in mid-June, and have been in a relatively steep decline. I mean, it is true that normally, as I've told you before, there's this phenomenon where you see oil prices go up and then gas prices go up in parallel. But then when oil comes back down, the gas prices only trickle down at a lower rate. And we've seen this with airfare. We've seen this in a lot of different areas that are dependent on the oil price. But we're actually seeing a relatively rapid decline of gas prices, now down to about $4.64 from a high of about $5.03. So it is true that gas prices are coming down. Now, the question is it bad for the mom and pops? Is it bad for gas stations when gas prices are lower, which would imply that it's good for gas stations when prices are higher? Now, this is not actually even true. And so with all of these discussions, first, we get the claim from Fox. First, we want to verify the fact. Are gas prices even coming down? And yes, they are coming down, and I've reported that to you. The next question is, do the local gas stations suffer when prices come down? It doesn't really work that way. When oil prices go up, what you actually sometimes see is gas stations, which make very little off of gas, try to outcompete competitors by really eating some of the price increase. So you will see the gas stations know, okay, oil prices are up. The cost we are now paying for gas is up. So we have to raise our retail price. I'm going to try to raise the price less than my competitor down the street because I make more money from the slushies and the peanut M&Ms and the $10 sunglasses or whatever else. So in fact, sometimes higher gas prices are quite good for the oil companies, but they are not necessarily so good for the local gas stations. And during higher prices, after expenses, gas stations will often make only 5 cents a gallon, sometimes even less. And that compares to what is often like a 15 to 20 cent per gallon profit for gas stations during more stable gas prices. So multiple aspects of this. The big one is the hypocrisy. They've been pulling their hair out with the sky is falling type stuff for a year now about high gas prices, which they say are Joe Biden's fault. We get a month of declines in gas prices. Now they say, oh no, lower gas prices aren't so good for the mom and pop gas stations. What about for all of the commuters that you've been talking about for a year? That's the main story. The maybe just as interesting one is that high gas prices are not particularly good for the mom and pop gas stations for the reasons that I just said. So it's unbelievable that Fox, I mean, they should be embarrassed that now they're saying gas prices might be going down too quickly. They might get too low. It's an embarrassment, but of course, their followers absolutely love it. They never get any contradictory information from other networks. Obviously, they should be saying, wait, this is a contradictory message from Fox. They've been telling me the higher gas prices are bad all this time. Now they're saying the lower gas prices could be bad. What is bad? What is good? They're not going to go through that process, and they will accept what is spoon-fed to them, but absurd hypocrisy from Fox News. Okay, let's now get into 2024. Joe Biden's approval has absolutely collapsed. Now, I was right there telling you when his approval was low, but still historically higher than many presidents at this point in time. I was telling you that. I was saying, yeah, it's low-ish, but he's still doing better than A, B, C, D, E presidents at this point in their first term. You have to go back to the 1940s now to find a first-term president with a lower approval rating at this point, right, July of the second year of his presidency, than Joe Biden. And we're going to get to those numbers. But this is coming at a time where also most Democrats are saying they don't want Joe Biden to run in 2024. Now, I don't believe he is going to run in 2024, but we're going to get to that in a moment. Most Democrats don't want Biden in 24, new poll shows. President Biden is facing an alarming level of doubt from inside his own party. 64% of Democratic voters say they would prefer a new standard bearer in 2024. This is from a New York Times Siena College poll. Voters nationwide have soured on his leadership, giving a meager 33% job approval rating. We'll look at an average of approval rating in a moment. It's a little bit higher than that. In this particular poll, it's at 33%. Widespread concerns about the economy and inflation have helped turn the national mood decidedly dark, both on Biden and the trajectory of the nation. More than 3/4 of registered voters see the U.S. moving in the wrong direction, a pervasive sense of pessimism that spans every corner of the country, every age range, every racial group, cities, suburbs, and rural areas, and both political parties. Only 13% of American voters say the nation is on the right track. Now, in terms of approval, Joe Biden's approval on average is down to 38.6%. This is, as you can see here, the lowest of his presidency. He kicked off his presidency in the mid-50s and remained there for several months, then started seeing a decline last summer as the COVID surge happened, negative press about getting out of Afghanistan, etc. A brief bump towards the end of the year, and then a continued decline. This is really not good. And when you look at historical numbers, which 538 allows you to do, you now see that Joe Biden's approval rating has dipped below where Donald Trump's was at this point in time. We're roughly at day 550. Where are we? Roughly about 545 of the presidency. Donald Trump had a higher approval rating at this point. Barack Obama had a higher approval rating at this point. George W. Bush had a higher approval rating. So did Clinton. George H.W. Bush was doing far better than Biden is now. Reagan was doing better. Jimmy Carter was doing better, although not by much. Gerald Ford was doing better. Nixon was doing better. LBJ was doing better. JFK and Eisenhower. You have to go all the way back to Harry Truman in 1946 to find a president that around day 545 was had a lower approval than Joe Biden. That's really, really bad. I believe it is time for Joe Biden to soon say, I will not be running for re-election in 2024. Make it public, make it clear, allow for anyone on the Democratic side to have time to consider whether they want to run for president in 2024, decide whether they want to mount a campaign, and to have a clean, open primary for 2024. And I say this for a few reasons. Number one, I just don't think Joe Biden wants to run for re-election. That's the most important thing. It's not about pushing Biden out. It's, I don't see any indication that he wants to run. He'll be 82 at the time. The language continues to be that he intends to run. After Kamala Harris definitively said he was running, The next day, she had to walk it back because it's very apparent to all of us that it's not clear that he actually plans to run. That's the primary reason. He doesn't seem to want to run, and it's becoming politically disadvantageous to Democrats for everybody to kind of have to pretend like he is going to run. I just don't think he's running. Secondly, his approval rating is collapsing. And whether it's Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis or whoever on the Republican side, there is going to be a major uphill battle for the 2024 election. And it would seem prudent and better to not rush anyone else into having to decide, am I getting in or am I getting out? Make it clear, I'm not going to be running for re-election. Now, I'm not actually saying that Biden should announce this before the midterms. It probably makes sense to wait for the midterms, but it should be done relatively soon. Again, Biden, least popular president at this point in his first term, dating back to Harry Truman in the 1940s. Third, even most Democrats don't want Joe Biden to run. So looking at the pulse of the party also matters. Now, I am right there with you in saying that even most of those Democrats who would rather someone other than Biden would almost certainly vote for Biden if Biden is the nominee. But it's not particularly reassuring when it comes to the possibility that the right will be really motivated in 2024. Okay, sure, most Democrats, even if they would rather someone else, would still vote for Biden. But even if it depresses turnout by a couple of points, I don't know that it's to the advantage of the Democratic Party. Now, there are many good options on the Democratic side, but the question becomes, does Kamala Harris run? And if so, do Biden and the DNC attempt to sort of anoint her the de facto nominee? She's not popular either. And she may lose a contested primary, but whatever is going to happen, there should be time so that Democrats don't get caught flat-footed. Now, let me say one other thing, because I already know some of the messages that I'm going to get. There's a lot of kind of finger wagging going on at people who aren't feeling inspired or confident in Biden 2024. The finger wagging should probably stop. I'm not saying I wouldn't vote for Biden over Trump or DeSantis in 2024. I would. I'm not even saying Joe Biden hasn't done some good things. He's done many good things, and I've enumerated them many times. I'm saying it would be better if Biden said what most Democrats are thinking and said, I'm not running for re-election. We did a great thing here by taking the country back from Trump. We did A, B, C, D, E, and I am clearing the way for a spirited primary where we are going to get, I am sure, a great nominee to go up against what is going to be a brutally desperate attempt by Republicans to take back the White House by any means necessary, and we know what some of those means are. That's what I think would be the best. Now, if you disagree with me or you agree with me, whatever, I want to hear from you. Let me know what you think. Find me on Twitter at @dpacman, and we will certainly follow up on this. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time, and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpacman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpacman.com. The David Pakman Show is a community, viewer, and listener-supported program. I would love for you to sign up at joinpacman.com. You can use the coupon code BIGVOTING22 to get a discount. We do a bonus show every single day for our members. We also provide a commercial-free audio and video stream of the show roughly 5 or 6 hours earlier than we publish the show to everybody. And you also get a phone line when we do our viewer town halls, the next of which is coming up soon. I have to get the details on that. That'll be announced very soon. Sign up at joinpacman.com. All right, we're going to look at an incredible contrast that is taking place now within the Republican Party. In the last segment, we looked at what's going on in the Democratic Party, Joe Biden approval, voter sentiment about who should run in 2024. Let's now look at the Republican Party. We have, on the one hand, a stunning new poll, which we will look at, which shows that half of Republicans are ready to abandon Trump. They want someone else. They're ready to go. And on the other hand, Donald Trump is still the most popular Republican. And every indication is that if there is a contested Republican primary involving Donald Trump, it's going to be absolutely and utterly insane. So let's start with the first piece first. Half of Republican voters are ready to abandon Donald Trump. Far from consolidating his support, writes the New York Times, the former president appears weakened in his party, especially with younger and college-educated Republicans. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida is the most popular alternative. And that's something you know if you've been watching the show because we've been talking about it. As Donald Trump weighs whether to open an unusually early White House campaign, that very same New York Times Siena poll, which we cited earlier in terms of Joe Biden and Democratic voters, shows that Trump's post-presidential quest to consolidate support within the GOP has left him weakened. Nearly half of the party's primary voters seek someone different for president in 2024, and a significant number are vowing to abandon Trump if he wins the nomination. Trump appears to have deepened fault lines among Republicans during his year-long revenge tour. A clear majority of primary voters under 35, 64%, as well as 65% of those with at least a college degree, a leading indicator of preferences in the donor class, told pollsters they would vote against Trump in a presidential primary. Reasons include Trump's conduct on January 6th. Overall, Trump maintains his primacy in the party. In a hypothetical matchup against 5 other Republican presidential rivals, 49% of primary voters say they would support him for a third nomination. So we're gonna get more into that in a moment, but here are some of these interesting numbers. So if a Republican 2024 primary were held today, who would you vote for? 49% say Donald Trump, 51% say someone else, but as you can see, no individual alternative gets more than 25%. And that, to a great degree, tells us a lot about the potential dynamics of a very fractured 2024 Republican primary, and we are going to get to that. Now, some interesting demographic numbers. Trump does much better, significantly better, notably better with men rather than women, 52 versus 45. And Trump does significantly better with those who have no college degree. In fact, among those with a college degree, Trump loses to DeSantis, 32 to 28. But among those with no college degree, Trump more than doubles Ron DeSantis, 58 to 21. Those are extraordinarily notable and interesting numbers. Now, one other aspect to this is that DeSantis has not run for president before. And so when you look at, Cruz is polling roughly 7% in this particular poll. Mike Pence is polling between 5 and 10, depending on which demographic group. These are known entities. DeSantis is not as known. And in fact, a quarter of Republicans said they don't even have an opinion of DeSantis yet because they don't know enough about him. Those who know who DeSantis is really like him. Unfortunately, a quarter don't, but that's actually a really good thing for Ron DeSantis because it suggests, at least theoretically, that as more Republicans come to know DeSantis, he may be influential in getting people over to his side. And later in today's show, we have a voicemail that asks sort of an important question about DeSantis versus Trump. Should DeSantis and Trump face off in a primary? The poll suggested that support from Fox News could prove crucial. And this could be, I think it is fair to say that at this point, Fox News has been weakened from its prior strength. And it has in part been weakened because of competitors like Newsmax and others. It's in part been weakened because Donald Trump has been significantly antagonistic to Fox News over the last year and a half. But Trump holds a 62 to 26 advantage over DeSantis among Fox News viewers. But among Floridians, it's 16 points closer if they use a different primary source of news. If you don't watch Fox, you're much less likely to support Trump over the DeSantis, and that would be a really critical thing. So half of Republicans, again, with all of these things, you can look at it glass half full or glass half empty, depending on who you are. One perspective would be half of Republicans want someone other than Trump. That's not particularly good for a former president. On the other hand, Trump doubles every other potential competitor right now and would easily win a primary if it were to be held today. And you can decide for yourself which of those two perspectives is more relevant or more valid. And that is the New York Times poll. Let's now go and talk about what the primary dynamics could be. Despite the fact that more than half of Republicans are ready to say bye-bye to Donald Trump, he's still the most popular Republican. And the dynamics of a crowded primary in 2024 would almost certainly benefit him in the same way that he benefited from a crowded field in 2016, but to a significantly greater degree. And we're going to explain why. A crowded GOP field could help Trump in 24, writes Jill Colvin from the Associated Press. As Donald Trump considers another White House run, polls show he's the most popular figure in the Republican Party, but it wasn't always that way. Competing at one point against a dozen rivals in 2016, Trump won only about a third of the vote in key early states. He even lost in Iowa. But he prevailed because those in the party who opposed his brand of divisive politics never coalesced along a single rival. And the same thing could repeat itself as Trump considers a new bid for the presidency as soon as this summer. With a growing list of candidates gearing up to run, even a Trump diminished by 2 impeachments and mounting legal vulnerabilities could hold a commanding position in a fractured multi-candidate primary. And the article goes on to say, interestingly, that anxiety is mounting as there's a growing list of rivals, potential rivals, taking increasingly brazen steps. This includes Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, Ted Cruz, Tom Cotton, Rick Scott, Tim Scott, Liz Cheney and Larry Hogan are raising profiles, and of course, Ron DeSantis, increasingly seen as Trump's heir apparent. So the scenario with the crowded field is almost certainly good for Trump. If the Republican Party, and I'm not giving them advice, it's an observation. If the Republican Party said, we want to put party over person and defeat Trump at all costs so we can have someone, quote, more normal as our nominee, they should really coalesce around someone early. I don't know that the dynamics of the Republican Party allow that. I don't know that the Republican Party is willing or interested in sort of anointing someone to replace Trump. And so what you could end up with if DeSantis runs, if whoever, if any of these people run, is, okay, Nikki Haley runs and holds 3% for a while and ultimately drops out. That's probably worse for DeSantis and better for Trump. 2 of that might go to Trump, and 1 of her 3 points goes to DeSantis. Trump consolidates support a little bit. Then Ted Cruz polls 4% for a while. It ultimately becomes clear Ted Cruz isn't going to be the nominee. Again, Trump wins by attrition in a similar way to what happened in the 2016 primary. And there's sort of a couple different layers of this. One is when you zoom out, Donald Trump incited an insurrection to try to overturn the actual winner of the 2020 election. He attempted to defraud the electoral vote count with all of these different techniques, asking for 11,000 votes in Georgia, fake electors, all this different stuff. And he still would apparently easily win a primary if it were held today. That says as much or more about the Republican primary voter than it does about Trump. We know plenty about Trump, but it says a lot about the primary voter that after all that, they'd still be willing to vote for him. A plurality would over any other candidate. But the other aspect of this is how committed is the Republican Party to actually removing Trump? Because listen, if at this point, 51% of their voters are already interested in someone other than Trump, not the same someone, but someone other than Trump, the best thing that they could do is try to consolidate support around someone early. If they decided, based on the polling, that DeSantis is their best shot, they should be working towards steering away other people from running and trying to build up Ron DeSantis. At least for now, publicly, they're not doing that. Although tomorrow on the show, I am going to tell you about the fundraising moves of Ron DeSantis, apparently trying to court some of the large Republican mega donors. My guess would be if the large mega donors say to DeSantis, we will support you, we would rather you than Trump, it seems that that could get his campaign off to a fast start. If on the other hand, they say, if it's Trump, we've got to support Trump because that's still where most of our voters are, or a plurality of our voters, that may dissuade DeSantis from even running. But this is very precarious for the Republican Party because so many Republicans now, particularly because there was no real primary in the Republican side in 2020, who have been saying, I might want to run. It would be interesting to run. I would like to run. This is the open primary, and it's hard to dissuade people from running in an open primary where there is no incumbent. At the same time, it's bad for them, and it's good for Trump. So I don't know ultimately what they will do or how they will manage it, but we will, of course, be watching it. And right now, DeSantis is the only guy who maybe has a shot. We'll have more on this on the David Pakman Show Instagram, which you can find at David Pakman Show. Also, oh, by the way, if you want to hear a voicemail so vile and so unhinged that I can't even play it on the podcast, check out my personal Instagram, david.pakman. I uploaded it this morning, and it is, it's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Let's put it that way. If you value what we do at the David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind-the-scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Radical and repugnant Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is now openly trying to destroy the Constitution, the very Constitution that she claims to love, that she claims to treat almost as if it were a sacred text or a religious doctrine of sorts. She now wants pastors to preach how churches can influence the direction of government. Now, understand that in order to be nonprofit entities and not pay all sorts of different taxes, churches actually have to avoid politics altogether. And what Lauren Boebert is suggesting is not just that churches get involved in politics, but that churches actually get directly involved in trying to influence government rather than just their parishioners or the people attending their church services. And this is the second time in 3 weeks that Lauren Boebert is openly hostile to separation of church and state, enshrined by the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And they will often not even justify it in any real way. Occasionally they will say, you know, the founding fathers were Christian, so therefore we don't need separation of church and state. Well, they may have been, some of them anyway, but they recognized the importance of that being their personal set of beliefs and not part of civil government. So let's get into the first clip here. Lauren Boebert says we need churches influencing government. Sorry, Lauren, that's not what the Constitution says.
And I believe that great patriots all throughout this nation and Christians will begin to position themselves in these days, in these times, that pastors would have a boldness to speak from the pulpit of their churches, to direct and inform the church on how to influence the direction of government.
That is the opposite of what the Constitution says needs to be the way the country is organized. And in fact, we already have, I mean, the sad reality is, much like the checks and balances that Trump ignored and seems to have successfully ignored, at least for now, in terms of consequences, in theory, when churches do politics, they lose their tax-exempt status. In practice, I've been covering for close to 2 decades churches that do politics, and we almost never see them lose their tax-exempt status. So both, what Lauren Boebert is saying is both completely against both the Constitution and the tax code, and they'll probably get away with it because there is very limited willingness or resources among the IRS to actually police this. Now, this is not a new thing with Lauren Boebert. This is Lauren Boebert's new calling. She recently, again, in the trend of trashing the very Constitution that she claims to revere, she said she's tired of separation of church and state. She called it junk, in fact.
The reason we had so many overreaching regulations in our nation is because the church complied. The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That is not how our founding fathers intended it. And I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk that's not in the Constitution. It was in a stinking letter, and it means nothing like what they say it does.
So that is open hostility to what is actually in the Constitution. Now, of course, the Establishment Clause is where we see that enshrined. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. That also means putting the non-religious at any kind of disadvantage. It's one way or the other. And the founding fathers seemed better, not that they were perfect, at separating their personal beliefs from what should be the role of religion in government. When they talk about, it is true when she refers to a letter, she's talking about Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is maybe responsible for the most famous use of the metaphor separation of church and state from a letter where he talks about a wall of separation. And the new thing that Republicans love to do is to say, it's not really in the Constitution. It was just in a letter that Jefferson wrote. But first of all, the letters are relevant in telling us the intent of the founding fathers. James Madison also in private, what we would call private communications, made clear that any government involvement in religion or support for any particular religion, or even the placing in a preferred status of religion over non-religion, would be improper and inappropriate for government. And also you have the Establishment Clause. So as often is the case, Democrats are going to try to steal the election and use fraud and all this. Actually, they did it. They're actually the ones that did that thing. Whenever they point to something, we should be wondering, are they actually the ones doing it? And when they say the left is destroying the Constitution and wants to use it as toilet paper or whatever the case may be, we should be wondering whether it is actually they who are trying to do that. And that is exactly what Lauren Boebert is trying to do. Now, to their credit, there are some more mainstream Republicans, Mitt Romney, for example, who doesn't agree with this perspective. He is, as far as I have most recently seen from Mitt Romney, he is personally very religious. He's Mormon and on. But he would take issue with what Lauren Boebert says in this clip. Many other Republicans won't support it publicly, but they like what she's saying, so they'll just shut their mouths. And then you have the ones that are just full-throated endorsers of what Lauren Boebert is saying. And it's dangerous. And if they end up getting more power, whether it's the House, Senate, more governorships at the state level, they will try to make this establishment of Christianity in government even more of a reality than it already is. Because to some degree, it already is there. Which religion gets federal holidays? Just Christianity, right? I mean, Easter and Christmas. There's no other religion that gets federal holidays. And so many other things that we've talked about. 10 Commandments displays at courthouses and on and on and on. It will get worse. Okay, next Lauren Boebert story. Lauren Boebert has been reported to the FBI for allegedly inciting violence by saying that we need to terminate the presidency of Joe Biden. Now, she doesn't say impeachment. She doesn't say 25th Amendment. She says terminate the presidency of Joe Biden. And now she has been reported to the FBI. Newsweek, Lauren Boebert reported to FBI after terminate this presidency tweet. Lauren Boebert has been reported by several users. The House Republican from Colorado on Sunday appeared to mock President Joe Biden after he mistakenly said presidency instead of pregnancy when discussing abortion rights being restricted in the U.S. following the revoking of Roe v. Wade. In response to her tweet, actually, let's look at the tweet first. Quote, "We need to terminate this presidency," end quote, repeat the line. Unfortunately, you can't just terminate things you don't want, Lauren. We've got to see this out through its full term. And this is really getting into fascistic rhetoric, particularly in light of a former world leader just being assassinated. It doesn't feel like an overreaction to say that Lauren Boebert should be investigated over this. And the term is stochastic terrorism. I've told you guys about this before. Stochastic terrorism is when you have a large enough audience that if you feed an idea to enough people, it starts to become statistically likely that someone will act on it. So for example, when you are, I don't know, Tucker Carlson, and if he were, and he's not doing this exactly, but if he were to every night say, we need someone to deal with Joe Biden in a permanent way. Okay. He's not saying go out and kill Joe Biden, but with a large enough audience, it would start to become predictable that someone's going to try to act on what Tucker Carlson is saying in exactly the violent way that he is implying it. This is not hypothetical. We have seen these incidents happen in the past. There's this guy, Glenn Beck. I believe he still is on The Blaze, maybe I think Glenn Beck is associated with The Blaze, a right-wing outlet, where when he had a program on, again, I'm thinking back, I think it was on Fox, although was it CNN? Now I don't even remember. He became obsessed with hammering on the Tides Foundation. The Tides Foundation, it's an enemy, it's evil, it's all this different stuff. And California Highway Patrol ended up actually pulling a guy over who was on his way to do violence to the Tides Foundation because he heard Glenn Beck talk about it. Now, could you hold Glenn Beck legally liable for that? No. Now, if it was significantly more direct, then maybe you could. But in that way, you're not going to hold Glenn Beck legally liable. But stochastic terrorism is a cultural phenomenon. If you continue hammering on whoever, then these things are going to happen. A more recent example, during the pandemic, Donald Trump talking about the China virus. China did it. Never should have happened. There have to be consequences. They must be punished, and on and on and on. And it leads to just on the street hate crimes against people believed to be of Asian and Pacific Islander origin. And we saw it in the United States. Random Asian women punched, knocked down, knocked out in some cases. Some of these things caught on video. Is Trump legally liable? No. Did he say go out and punch random Asian people on the street? No. But from our cultural understanding, we would start to realize, oh, it's going to become likely that that will happen when you have a large enough platform and you start putting these messages into people's minds. And that's exactly what Lauren Boebert is doing here with we must terminate this presidency. Stochastic terrorism. It's the term. We've seen it before. It's real. And unfortunately, there's two sides to this. One, a lot of these things don't rise to the level of criminality. And I'm not saying that they should. They just often don't. And number two, there is so much of this that law enforcement can't even keep up. Federal law enforcement, investigative agencies, Secret Service, keeping up threats. It's overwhelming the degree to which this type of thing is out there. And if you listen to the voicemail that I posted to my Instagram and to my Twitter this morning, you will see that these folks are everywhere. And we've got to be very, very cautious and concerned about them. And Lauren Boebert is just making the problem worse. Follow us on social media. Interact with the David Pakman Show community. See exclusive content. See when we're taking calls live. And stay up to date on other big show announcements. We post daily. Find us on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and TikTok. The MAGA love affair with Elon Musk seems to be coming to a sort of predictable end. This all sort of got going around the Twitter purchase that was simply not to be. Elon Musk of Tesla and SpaceX fame announced that he wanted to buy Twitter and that he had reached a deal with Twitter. I didn't believe it for a second. I didn't think he was going to buy Twitter. Then it sort of like nothing moved forward for a little bit. And Elon Musk announced that he's having some concerns about the number of bots on the platform. This was after a whole flood of right-wing users came back to Twitter following right-wing accounts on the heels of Elon Musk's announcement. Musk started to say, well, I'm not really getting the data I want about the number of fake users and bots, so I'm putting the purchase on hold. And I said at that point, he was never going to buy Twitter and he's not going to buy Twitter. And now Elon Musk actually says that he's backing out. And it's, of course, not at all surprising. But in addition to this, Donald Trump and Elon Musk are now publicly feuding in the sense that Trump appears to be lying again and Elon Musk seems to be telling the truth. Now, I think a lot of this was inevitable in the sense that Elon Musk is basically a self-centered opportunist, as are many tech CEOs. I don't necessarily say that pejoratively, although it could certainly be interpreted as such. And as a result, he and Donald Trump are now not getting along well. During his rally in Anchorage, Alaska, Donald Trump said that's the wrong order. First and foremost, Donald Trump at his Anchorage rally said, Elon Musk told me that he voted for me, but later said, I've never voted for a Republican. And so therefore he must be a liar. Elon Musk responded to a report of that on Twitter by saying it's not true, meaning it's not true I ever told Trump I voted for him. So Trump getting called out for one apparent lie. Then at the Anchorage rally, Trump going on a rampage, attacking Elon Musk, who he also referred to as Leon Musk during the rally.
Another one of our highest priorities under a Republican Congress will be to stop left-wing censorship and to restore free speech in America. And go out, by the way, while I'm here and sign up now for Truth Social. It's hot as a pistol, and you see that. I pulled that one right. Leon's, I tell you what, Elon is not going to buy Twitter.
No.
Where did you hear that before? From me. From a fake account. She says fake. A lot of them. Nah, he's got himself a mess. You know, he said the other day, I've never voted for a Republican. I said, I didn't know that. He told me he voted for me. So he's another bullshit artist, but he's not going to be buying it. He's not going to be buying it. Although he might later. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? He's got a pretty rotten contract. I looked at his contract. Not a good contract.
Right. Okay. So Breitbart highlighting that clip. And then Elon Musk responded, I don't hate the man, but it's time for Trump to hang up his hat and sail into the sunset. Democrats should also call off the attack. Don't make it so that Trump's only way to survive is to regain the presidency. So the love affair between the MAGA people and Elon Musk predictably sunsetting, I think we could say. Now, let's talk a little bit about Elon Musk. I get a lot of people in my audience who are Elon Musk fanboys. They love him. They love his products. They love everything. And then I hear from people who absolutely hate Elon Musk, and they see him as some right-wing extremist and all these different things. It might not surprise you that much the same way that I don't really care about or fall into the cults of personality among politicians. I was a Bernie supporter. I wasn't part of the Bernie cult, so to speak. There's the Tulsi cult. Andrew Yang had a cult around him. Donald Trump is a cult. I just see these as people. Hopefully they do more good than harm. And if I think that they're the best option, I'll vote for them. But beyond that, I don't really get too sucked into the personalities of it. And also, in having met a lot of these people, they're just normal people. I mean, think about all the flaws everyone you personally know has. They're just normal people because they're normal people. All of these other people are as well. And much the same way, on a business level, if you bet against Elon Musk, it doesn't seem to be the best bet. Elon Musk has had a number of really successful businesses. I've disclosed. I bet on that when in 2015, I bought Tesla stock and the stock went crazy, although now it's down from its peak and whatever. Okay, who cares? It seemed that that was going to be a business that would grow. And it's by far the largest electric vehicle manufacturer now in the United States. Great. The degree to which Tesla has advanced the electric vehicle development and normalization is incredible. And the reason that every other vehicle manufacturer now is scrambling to get more electric vehicles out there is because of the success of Tesla. That's a great thing. Elon Musk also is just wacky on a lot of political stuff. The recent tweets about the right is where it's always been, but the left has become extreme. That's just wrong. That's wacky. I don't know who gave him that idea. Just wrong. His recent thing about, I'm now going to vote for Republicans. I'm only voting for Republicans. Republicans are better for this, that, or the other reason. He's just wrong. It's wacky. It's completely wacky. Disagree with it completely. But at its core, the interpretation that makes the most sense to me is Elon Musk has some bad ideas and some good ideas. He uses tax law to his advantage, as all of these rich guys do. He is a self-centered opportunist who, at the end of the day, wants what's best for himself and for his companies. It's not a big surprise. We don't have to deify or demonize and just recognize it for what it is. And all of that being said, he has never struck me as a particularly reactionary guy. I think he's gotten sucked into right-wing Republican politics. Maybe it's hanging around with Rogan. I don't know what it is. But it seemed as though the love affair between the MAGA people and Elon Musk was destined to end. And it seems that it is indeed now ending. So hopefully we can close the chapter on that. I don't believe he ever intended to buy Twitter, and I don't think he's ever going to buy it. Hey, this is really funny. Bill O'Reilly sort of trying to make a comeback after being completely disgraced on Fox News. Last week, Bill O'Reilly played up his anger, where he sort of like is frustrated with his scripts and looks at pretending to rip them up. And he was flipping out because of minorities and gang violence and who the hell knows what. He now is offering a service. It's a concierge program where if you have travel questions for Bill, if you have a problem with a product, or an airline has stiffed you or left you high and dry at an airport or whatever, you can contact Bill and he will give you advice. And this is why I should be doing this, shouldn't I? Anyway, tell me if this sounds appealing to you or if this is just the latest grift.
So I get a lot of questions about people traveling the world.
Yep.
And because I've been to 84 countries, I can steer you into good places.
Sure.
And tell you if you get ripped off.
Mm-hmm. Is it really worth paying €12 a day to rent a bike in Copenhagen? If you don't know, and you're in Copenhagen and you're like, is this a good price? You contact Bill O'Reilly and he will tell you.
Get questions about consumer problems that somebody's contractor is doing and then I can steer them. I get financial questions. I cannot give financial or medical advice, but I can tell you what I would do.
Right. If you're like, listen, Bill, I know you can't tell me whether I should open a 529 account for my kid or whether interest rates are going. I know you can't officially tell me, but what would you do in this exact same situation?
All right. So life is complicated. For a concierge membership on BillO'Reilly.com, you have me to answer your questions, which we do within 24 hours.
Right. Now, who is we? Is that the royal we? I don't know what that is. That's interesting.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. So you might want to think about it.
Yep, definitely something to think about. Now, you might be shocked to hear this. It's only $7.92 a month for this. So my belief is that Bill O'Reilly isn't personally answering your questions for $7.92 a month. My guess is that it's some lackey. So, I'm considering a new espresso machine. Maybe it's time for me to go and ask Bill O'Reilly. What about which steam wands are the best? Do I need a double boiler? He's the guy. He's the guy that I guess I should be asking. Now, in all seriousness, I don't know how many people have checked out Bill O'Reilly's content recently. It's pretty weird. Like it seems almost like a kind of neutered Bill O'Reilly who has to pretend and play up his anger. I'll play a little bit of this stuff for you. Here is the no spin news from O'Reilly. Check this out. Oh no, hold on a second. It's actually hard. They make it hard to find previews. Let's see if I can even navigate his website. No spin news. Watch free excerpts. Let's see if we can check that out. Here's a segment about Hunter Biden that he did yesterday. This should be interesting. Let's check out his commentary.
It doesn't seem like the Hunter Biden situation. It's 2 years since the grand jury has been impaneled in Delaware. It doesn't take 2 years to do this kind of investigation. So I'm saying that this is just phony.
Now, does he mean that it's phony to even be investigating him or that the investigation is a cover?
Whole Hunter Biden thing, how do you see it?
Yeah, the concern I have, Bill, is when you have already put witnesses in front of the grand jury, you're supposed to request that the grand jury, once they've heard from all the witnesses, to vote on whether or not to indict. And they put witnesses many, many months ago in front of the grand jury. So the question really is, do they ever intend to? Because I've never seen it take this long from the time they had witnesses in front of the grand jury.
I guess they're saying that the Hunter investigation is a sham. That seems to be the point.
To when the prosecutor says, okay, you have the case now, grand jury, now go and vote on whether or not an indictment should come.
Yeah, the prosecutor is a guy named David Weiss, Delaware's U.S. attorney. But this looks phony to me.
All right, so there's Bill. So if you're looking for Hunter Biden takes, there's an interesting one. Let's see if I can find. This is going to be good. Here, Bill provides advice if you go to breakfast at a diner, how to save some money.
So it's really bad in America now. It'll get better, but it's going to be a while, and we're going to be absorbing pain.
The idea of Bill O'Reilly giving diner advice, I am so curious what he says.
Money is important. It provides you with security. It provides you with peace of mind. Don't waste money.
Right.
So I'm going to give you tips under the Smart Life banner to save money. Okay? We'll do it 2 times a week. We'll have a lot of tips on the website. If you have tips, please send them to us and share it with the rest of the world.
Yep.
Bill@BillO'Reilly.com again. Okay? Let us know. We'll post them. Okay, so over the weekend, I took the urchins for breakfast about, I don't know, quarter of a mile from my house. And
did he say he took the urchins? What is that, like his grandkids?
They go in and they order $2.50 orange juice.
Uh-oh.
Okay?
And Bill's only worth $85 million, so he's not going to stand for that.
So little cup, $2.50, Tropicana. I saw them pour it, not fresh squeeze. Okay. Today I went on the internet and 58 ounces of Tropicana, $3.
Oh, this is the most compelling thing this is the most interesting TV Bill O'Reilly has ever done.
So my urchins spend $5 on little cups when you could get 58 ounces, and we have it in the refrigerator.
Now, I wonder if Bill O'Reilly drinks wine at restaurants, because it's hard to find something more overpriced than that. I mean, this is weird.
We have it. So I looked at him and I go, what are you doing? We have OJ in the refrigerator. What is this? $5 on fire. Then they order their entrees, what they wanted for breakfast, and then they order a side of corned beef hash.
Uh-oh.
Now, the side of corned beef hash in the place is good, but they didn't want to change the menu prices, so they cut the size in half. It's $9. And while you used to get a pretty good portion of corned beef hash,
Bill is not getting his corned beef hash, and he is pissed.
You don't any longer. And they didn't even eat it.
This seems like satire. This seems like it is a joke.
We're full from the pancakes and the omelet. I'm sitting there going, all right, let's add it up. $9 and $5 and $14 you just set on fire.
I think Bill's tip is order less food when you go out. Eat less food is really the way to save money.
And they did. And now, the eye roll. Here's the eye roll. Now, okay, this is what I'm talking about. The urchins have no blanking clue. They work. They have to in my house. But Dad pays the breakfast tab.
Oh, I guess he's talking about his kids, not even his grandkids.
But it's that kind of waste. You've got to be thinking about value. You got to be thinking about this.
Now, there's 2 layers of this. First, hearing Bill O'Reilly be pissed off about the size of a corned beef hash side is endlessly fascinating. I actually might pay for that. I'm now thinking I might buy this subscription and send questions about pizza toppings and how to save money, and have him calculate the area of a circle to tell us that the larger pizza is usually the better deal. That's fascinating. But this is kind of like the latte millionaire stuff. This is a big thing in the personal finance space, which is like, hey, listen, if you just didn't get your latte every day, you'd be a millionaire. In like 17 years, you'll be a millionaire or whatever. the reality is that the things that for most people are keeping them from being financially independent or even stable, right? Just even stable, are the cost of housing, cost of transportation, stagnant wages. It's not real. Like, it's fine. This stuff is fine, but it's along the same lines of get rich by skipping coffee. And it's not really representative of the financial pressure that is on most people. But there it is. Wow. Bill O'Reilly. Fascinating stuff there. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Here's a question about 2024.
Hey, David. My name is Steve. I'm calling from San Diego, California.
Please.
I just wanted to drop my 2 cents on who's better, DeSantis or Trump.
Right.
Or who's worse, I guess. I think it's Trump. I think DeSantis, obviously, like you say, he probably could do more damage policy-wise just because he's not so crazy.
Yes.
But I think Trump would do more damage to our institutions, long-term and short-term, just destroying democracy. I just can't understand, or I can't fathom seeing Trump in office without the possibility of him looking forward to having an answer to the voters again.
Yeah, I understand the point that the caller is making, but I actually still think that by virtue of being less cartoonishly unable to get anything done, in the net, DeSantis would be worse than Trump. I still think that, but I'm open to having my mind changed. We've got a great bonus show for you today. Sign up at joinpacman.com. We'll talk about the Twitter Elon Musk deal evaporating. We'll talk about California starting to make its own insulin. And we will talk about the euro-dollar parity that has been reached for the first time in 20 years. And I have no plans to take advantage of it. That's for sure. Sign up at joinpacman.com. We'll see you on the bonus show.